Welcome to Marketing Cupcakes, a quantitative marketing podcast where we bring you the latest techniques in marketing analytics, data science, systems integrations, growth hacking, guerrilla marketing, and data architecting.
Hey guys, welcome to Marketing Cupcakes. We're here for another episode. I'm Dave Gilbert, and this is James here with us as well. Today we're going to talk about guerrilla marketing. A lot of our episodes have been focused on data and marketing systems. And today, we wanted to spend some time talking about some things that really create a lot of demand generation. So a few months back, we wrote an article about the best guerrilla marketing ideas in 2017. And we're going to expand on that a little bit today and talk about some companies that have done some pretty cool guerrilla marketing campaigns that you could mimic. So to start us off, some of our ideas, ironically enough, actually, as we did a little research, coincided with some things that Mark Benioff has done at Salesforce. So back when Salesforce was getting started, Mark Benioff actually hired all of the taxis at a Siebel conference in Cairns, and he spent 45 minutes driving people around talking about his software. And, we talked about that in our article and just how great of an idea that is, whether you're renting taxis or we talked about doing a branded shuttle where you can actually rent cars or Uber drivers, and you can put a car wrap on top of that car and drive people around and tell them about your message. Because ultimately at these events, you're really just trying to get a few minutes of people's time. And what that does is it allows you to, number one, give them a service that they need. They're already paying for taxis. And number two, it gives you a captive audience to kind of display your message. And so as you think about, those guerrilla marketing campaigns at trade shows, you can use that to do a video and put brochures in the car and then just display your message as they get in and give them a free ride. So that was one, is just doing shuttle services at an event. One that I saw that I thought was really cool was done by Fiserv. And Fiserv is a really big financial services company. They do a lot of have tons of different products in the financial services market. And one year at a really big conference, they were giving away orange Converse to all the executives in the trade show. And it was really cool, and it worked. It was super, super effective for building brand awareness around Fiserv, because all these executives were in suits, but on the bottom of their suit, they were wearing these orange Converse. And everybody, all over the city of Washington, D.C., were talking about these orange Converse at the time, because these guys were all walking around together. So everybody at the conference was talking about it, and it was just a great guerrilla marketing campaign that really built brand awareness for Fiserv, which was their goal, right? Their goal wasn't necessarily to get the word out about what they did. Everybody kind of knew what they did, but they did build a lot of brand awareness around them. Another thing that I saw that was really cool at that same conference a few years later was done by Bankview, which is now Kasasa. And one of the things they did is they gave people capes with their name on the back. And if you were wearing your cape around, they would randomly find people wearing their capes and give them cash. And so again, that built brand awareness around Kasasa. I think at the same time, they were trying to not only build brand awareness but generate leads. And I think that got people to come talk to them and come recognize their name. And I think they still do the capes today. Last conference I was at, they were doing the capes. Someone's listening, Matt or one of the guys over at Keith over at Kasasa, you guys can tune in here and let us know. But I think they're still doing the capes today. One of the other ideas we had for a guerrilla marketing campaign was done by a company called Clean Bottle. And this was a few years back. They were a startup. They had their products made, and they were trying to think of a way to get their message out there without spending a ton of money. And if any of you have heard this story, it's just remarkable what they did. They took they made a bottle out of styrofoam that was huge, the size of a person, it was a costume basically that a person could wear. And they flew over to the Tour de France from the U.S., and they had this person run in front of the cameras with the Tour de France as they were riding around France, with the bikers as they were riding around France. And so what this did is it created this platform for them to get media exposure, and everybody started talking about this clean bottle and what the heck all of these people were doing in these costumes running around the Tour de France. And so it was a great guerrilla marketing campaign that I think built a ton of exposure for them. A few more ideas that we talked about in our blog article a few months back is the flash mob idea. So that's a great way. There's actually companies all over the US and the UK that you can hire to do a flash mob. So think of going to a big event or going to a trade show and having people bust into dance or music that talks about your product. It'd be a great way to get exposure and brand awareness for your company. Another one that actually Mark Benioff has used before is a protester idea. So, I talked about this in the blog a few months back as well, but before I read about Mark doing this, I was actually in San Francisco riding around in a Uber, and the Uber driver was telling me about how he was doing Uber through school, and it was really a great way for him to make money. And we were talking about how cool it is that there's apps now that enable people to get services and people to make money, and they allow people to match up to do that. And we were talking about how awesome it would be. We got on the subject of apps and different apps that can be used for that. And one of the things we started talking about was if we could hire protesters on demand to go, protest for whatever reason. And it just got me thinking at the time of how cool that would be to have a bunch of people with signs that show up at an event. And reality is they're not protesting anything. They're just showing off your branding and your marketing with signs, which gets a lot of people attention. And so there's a handful of guerrilla marketing ideas that you could use. There's a bunch more if you look up online the way companies have got exposure over the years. Guerrilla marketing is really morphed. It's a lot of people are talking about growth marketing these days, which is kind of like guerrilla marketing online. But there's still a lot of ways to build awareness if you just try to think outside of the box. And if you start thinking about disrupting social norms, going outside of what you would normally do, I think that's when guerrilla marketing ideas really start to thrive. Is how can we do something that's outside of the social norms? So that's the podcast for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please rate the podcast, and please listen in next time. We'll catch you next time, guys. Thanks. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Marketing Cupcakes, an Endure podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date on the latest marketing techniques, visit endure.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and rate the podcast. We'll catch you next time on Marketing Cupcakes.